Yo, peddlers, welcome back to the podcast. This is your host, Norby, and I hope you enjoy this next episode. All right, so let's jump into it. Patricio, right? Am I saying it correctly?
Patricio.
Okay. Italian?
Yeah, you got it. Well, I'm from Argentina.
Okay. All right, Patricio, thanks a lot for joining me on this next episode of the Paddler Podcast. We have with you an entrepreneur, an investor, a 5-time marathon finisher, if I understood that correctly, or did my research correctly, a director of tennis, founder. So I'm pretty excited to have you on the show. Thank you for accepting the invitation and joining me on there. I've done a short introduction, but let's hear from you a little bit. So 5-time marathon finisher, you must be a crazy runner.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. And yeah, that is one of the things that I never really thought that I would do. Like even consider running a marathon growing up. I grew up playing tennis in Argentina.
Okay.
And we never ran more than 5 or 6K.
Yeah.
But then, one thing led to another. And then I ran, I finished 5 marathons. And I'm taking a little bit of a break right now. But I think soon I'm going to start probably training for another one.
Okay.
And my main goal is one day be able to qualify for the Boston Marathon.
Okay. What's your time? What's your best time?
I ran 3:27 in Philadelphia and like a little over a year ago. So I'm just a few minutes off the qualifying time for Boston.
Okay.
So if I have a good day, and I think I could make it.
Okay. Awesome. Well, good luck on that, and congratulations, by the way, because one time I trained for a marathon, and then that's exactly the time when I started playing paddle as well. And then because I'm from Hungary, it's a small country, so I was able to make the team in Hungary already, so right from the beginning,
Nice.
And then we qualified for the European Championships or whatever. And then I was preparing for a marathon as well. So I was like, it's not, the two doesn't go well together. So I said, screw marathon. I'll train a little bit more paddle, and then we'll go from there. Marathon I can run later, hopefully. So yeah, that was my marathon experience. But yeah, anyways, let's go a little bit of your background. I would like to start all the way from the back of turning, maybe starting from you're being a director of racquet sports and tennis, has a lot of experience, right? So tell me a little bit about that in terms of what the experience you have, and then I have a couple questions, or 1 or 2 questions maybe on that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go a little bit further back, just very briefly. In Argentina, I grew up playing tennis and padel in the 90s. So I used to play when you were not allowed to serve and come to the net, and the courts on the side were in a 45-degree angle, the side wall. But that's my first experience playing padel in the 90s.
Okay, wow.
Argentina was huge at that time. And then for a long period of time, when I moved to the US 20-something years ago, there were not that many courts. Yeah. Now there are a lot more courts. Yeah. But for a long period of time, I didn't really play. I would only play when I went back to visit. Okay. And then I moved to the US to play college tennis. Then I started teaching tennis. I got
Where did you play? College?
I played at a small school in Florida called Weber International. It's an NAIA school. Okay. We were ranked in the top 5 in NAIA. I think they just the tennis team actually, but and it was pretty good level.
Florida. I played college tennis in Florida as well. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, I played against St. Louis. I played against Raleigh, against Barry University. Yeah. All the top D2 schools we played against. Okay. And then against all the other top NAIA schools. Yeah. And so I moved to Connecticut. I got a job as a tennis pro. Then I got a job as a director of tennis, director of rackets. I got into platform tennis, a little bit of pickleball in the last few years. And in the last 2 years, more or less, I stopped teaching full-time at a club. And I've been working with a couple of friends / partners on trying to open up this club. We've been working for now a year since we nailed down on the location, and we are about to start construction probably in the next week or so. And we have a building in Norwalk, Connecticut, which is an hour outside of New York City, and that is already built. It used to be a warehouse. Okay. And we're going to turn it into an indoor facility with padel, with pickleball, and golf simulators.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. I was going to get into that. So we'll get into more detail about that, because that's obviously the most interesting, or not the most interesting, the whole thing is interesting, but that's something that the podcast is about, I guess. Yeah. But going back, so I wanted to ask one question in terms of your experience in terms of director of sports and director of tennis at different clubs, right? Have you had any kind of strategies that has worked for you the best? You know what I mean? Going into the club, and obviously as the director of tennis, director of racket sports, you're trying to grow the sport. You're trying to get more members in. You're trying to get more. Is there anything, if you think back at it, that one or two things that has really helped you be successful at your job, at the positions that you were at?
And I mean, there are a lot of different things that you can do. You have to make it fun. You have to make it available. It's very important that the times and the time of the day and the days of the week and when you're planning all your programs make sense for who the prospective students are, whether they are, is someone who's working full-time or someone who's working part-time, someone who has kids. So you have to give your students, the members of the club, you have to give them a lot of different options so then they can choose. And the more rules that you create in terms of, okay, you need to commit for 2 or 3 months, then that's a barrier to entry. So if you make it more flexible in the sense that people can sign up for only once if they want to try it, versus you have to commit before they really know they like it.
Yeah.
And that's another strategy. But the bottom line is that you need to understand who your target market is, and based on what their time constraints might be, then you have to work around those things too.
Sure. Okay. And that's thinking of getting new members as well. So I wasn't just thinking, I'm not sure that you meant that for lessons, more or less, right? Giving cardio classes or giving ladies sessions, but as well getting just in general new members for the club itself. Is there anything there that you could say?
Most of my experience so far in Connecticut, where I worked for the last 15 plus years, it's been at private clubs.
Okay.
So it's not like you can go out there and then look for more.
Okay, I understand. Yeah.
So everyone who comes to the club, it's a member.
Okay.
And they join, with their families. So we already have.
I understand that. Okay. Cool.
Now, and this club that we're going to open is a little bit different, because you do have to be a member to play, but we're also allowing non-members to come and play.
Okay.
So we're going to offer a lot of different opportunities for non-members to come and play. Basically, we want people to come to the door so then they see it and then like, oh, I want to come here more often.
Sure.
So we're going to do a lot of tournaments, Friday, Saturday, Sunday sort of thing for Padel, for Pickleball. Yeah. We're planning to do a lot of events so people come to the club and then they like it because we think it's going to be an amazing place.
Sure.
And then they'll want to join.
Sure. Okay. So let's talk about a little bit more about that. Already going into it, Sports Haus, right? Pickleball, paddle, and golf simulators, right? Membership, non-membership. I know in the US, as I lived in the US, I also worked for a country club as a tennis coach. In the US, I know memberships are very, very popular, and being a member of the club, and then you can use the facilities. In Europe, or where I'm at in Switzerland, tennis clubs also use memberships, but that's possible because tennis is an Olympic sport in Switzerland, so they obviously get support from the government, right? In paddle, for now, I also run a paddle center in Switzerland with 8 courts, and that's my main job. We could, I guess, but it doesn't make sense for us to have a membership option where you can have members and they can just book courts, I guess, whenever they want, right? Because our courts are sold out on a daily basis in the evening. So I guess memberships for the mornings would work, but yeah, they don't play that much. So it's a bit difficult on the memberships and non-members. How does that? Tell me a little bit more about the economical side of that for the club and for how you guys plan that out for the financial economical side of things.
So the fun thing about being a club owner in my case is the first time is that, and we can create whatever we think is going to work. Usually when I worked before, I went to a club and they had the set, rules about membership and pricing, and I just had to adapt to that. So now two of my partners are currently directors of rackets in the same area, in the Connecticut, New York area. And they've been doing this for about 20 years, more or less.
Okay.
And then we have a fourth partner who has owned a tennis club on Long Island indoors. And for the last, I don't know, he's been an owner for decades.
Okay.
So between the four of us, we know a lot about the rackets industry and this area specifically. We would not necessarily use the same structure of our business if we were somewhere else in the Midwest or in the South or on the West Coast. And the fact that we know there are about 100 country clubs in the area where we are within 30 or 40 miles, which is, I don't know, let's say like within 60 to 80 kilometers. And so there are so many clubs that have that same model of membership that we know that everyone understands what it means. You know, you join a club and then in order to play, you have to become a member. The other thing that we have an advantage is that in terms of indoor paddle or indoor pickleball, paddle, there's absolutely zero.
Yeah.
And the closest place, it's a little over an hour in Brooklyn.
In the city, right?
4 courts.
Yeah.
And yeah, Padel House, which is a little bit of over an hour and from us.
Okay.
So in New England, which is north of New York City, there's 0 paddle courts.
Yeah.
And open to the public. Indoors, there are 0. So we think that that's an advantage for us. And on the pickleball side, there are some indoor pickleball places, but we are going to have designated courts where you have, you know, the fence surrounding the court.
Yeah.
So we have an advantage. So we say that for right now, we are the only game in town. Yeah. So if you want to experience playing indoors in this high quality and upscale indoor country club, then we are the only place. So we think that that's why in our scenario, in our situation, is going to work.
Okay, and going into again the membership, because I was a coach there in the US, and I don't remember anymore. But tell me a bit more now. The model I know here in Switzerland and in Europe, obviously, you are a member of the club. I'm a member of a tennis club as well. Still, I play sometimes, and that means I can go and book a court, and I don't have to pay anything, right? Does that work for you guys as well? Or members only get the ability to book the courts and get a discount? They still have to pay for the court?
So our club, so our club, the way it works, usually indoor tennis or anything indoor, you have to pay. So outdoor clubs
as non-member.
Yeah, so outdoor clubs work different, where for the most part, you join, you pay your monthly fee, and then you can play whenever. Now, for indoor clubs, because it's more expensive to maintain the indoor place, and you have, and the AC, the air conditioning, the heat, the lights, so it's more expensive to maintain. You are going to have to join the club and then pay for the court. The same, there are a couple of other recreational facilities that have gymnasiums, that have indoor hockey or indoor swimming pools that you join the club, and then on top of that, whenever you want to participate in an activity, you pay on top. So that's how our club is going to work. Now, for the non-members, when they come and they use the club, which they are allowed, but with some limitations, they're going to pay a guest fee for the day.
Okay, so that's an extra fee for you guys as well on the economic side. Okay, cool. Understood. Okay, so tell us a bit more, Sports Haus. How many paddle, how many pickleball? Again, I have 5 paddle, 4 pickle, 5 paddle, 6 pickle.
Yes, 5 paddle and 4 pickleball courts.
Okay.
And the ceilings are, I'm gonna try to make so in meters, it's almost 8 meters.
Okay.
And I think about 8 meters. And the roof is not, it's not the same height everywhere, but it's between 7.5 and 8 meters. I think some parts it's a little bit over 8 meters, but pretty much that's the ceiling height.
Enough.
We have some sprinklers that are, just in case there's a fire. So we're gonna relocate those so they're not interfering with play. And there's plenty of space in between the courts to walk behind, to walk on the side. If we have some high level play, and the ball goes outside of the court, then we have space for those things as well.
Okay, cool. Okay, awesome. 7.5 is more than enough to play. I mean, I've played at clubs. The club that I'm running is as well a bit low, actually. We might be building the roof. We might be taking the roof away and getting a little bit higher because it's a bit lower than that. But 7.5, 8 meters is more than enough to play at any level you want, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. What is your take? We'll get back to the club and the golf simulator because that's also interesting for me. But let's go into the paddle and pickleball, and not versus. It is versus at the end, I think, because it's both a new sport, right? Both an up-and-coming sport. Pickleball is obviously a lot more played in the US than paddle at the moment. Paddle is a lot more played in Europe than pickleball is hardly known in Europe. So how do you see that kind of combining the two together? And what's your take on paddle, pickleball moving together, moving up the rankings together? Because it's not tennis versus... Not even versus. I don't like to. It's not against each other. Don't get me wrong, right? I don't have this idea, but it's tennis. It's a very established sport, and there's some new sports coming up. And in paddle and pickleball is both relatively new and both relatively coming up in popularity. What's your take on that? On the two?
So the first thing that I completely agree with you, that is not one sport versus the other sport. I understand why, especially in the US, some see it as pickleball versus tennis, because there are a lot of places where pickleball courts are installed or they are taking away some of the tennis courts. So I don't know of one place where a tennis court that is being used all the time is being taken away by pickleball. So usually it happens when you have a piece of real estate, like a tennis court, and it's not being used as much. So people say, "Oh, let's use this and turn it into a pickleball."
Like three pickle courts, right? So obviously,
so that's why there is a little bit of why there is a little bit of, like, tennis versus pickleball versus tennis. I don't see that at all, because I see a big crossover between someone who plays tennis, who then plays pickleball, who then plays padel, and vice versa. They go from one to the next, and I think they feed each other. There are good elements about all of them in terms of what you can do, developing skills. When you play pickleball, you need good touch to hit that, what it would be something similar to hitting a chiquita. That short and soft ball, so your opponents don't crush it. And you can work on that on the paddle court. And then volleys, the tennis volleys are very similar to the paddle volleys.
Paddle volley,
So there are elements that very easily cross over between one and the other. And look, I played all the sports. I teach all the sports as well. We think that a lot of the tennis players that don't like pickleball, that is, growing is very popular in the US right now, they will go to paddle. Because there's, and I don't want to say, well, there is more of an element of athleticism that is required to go back and forth a lot more when you play paddle than when you play pickle. When you play pickle, you get to the kitchen line, which is 7 feet, 2 meters more or less of the net, and then you're pretty much stuck there. You don't go back and forth constantly or side to side, and other than a couple of shuffle steps at the net. And so see how a lot of tennis players are going to play paddle, and a lot of tennis players are going to play pickle, and vice versa. So we see a lot of crossover.
Okay. I haven't played pickleball. I will. I'm planning to go to the US at the end of the year, and end of August, the middle of September, more or less. I haven't been back since I left college, which is about 8 years ago now. So I'm pretty excited. And just when I left is when pickleball started to pick up a little bit. So I haven't played, so I can't comment on how it is to play pickleball, which is killing me, because I'm talking to now some guys in the US, some friends in the US as well, and I'm explaining them about paddle and this and that and blah 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 blah, and they say, yeah, but pickleball, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know, I haven't played, so I cannot comment actually, but I cannot wait to try out pickleball when I get to the US and try it out. But I agree with you as well. It's great that you guys have this at Sports Haus, have you combine that, and at the end it will both, I think, will work, because both of them can be relatively entertaining at the high level, and as well the lower level, anyone can pick it up and more or less and play. Let's go into the golf simulator part of the Sports Haus. How did that idea come about? Why? What is that? Just kind of.
Well, like I said before, I worked for the good part of the last 20 years at a country club. And so 2 of my other partners, they golf a little bit. And there are more and more of these country clubs in the area that have some sort of golf simulator or golf indoor, practice facility. There are a few places in our area where they do have golf simulators, and people cannot get enough of them. The graphics and the actual simulation of being on a golf course is incredible. and it doesn't require as much space as other sports. Sorry. And we think it's a good, match for our facilities. We see that a lot of the players that play pickleball or padel or have a tennis background in our area, they play golf. So that's a great, thing to get together. And then they require a lot more, a lot less in real estate. So in the space that we had, we couldn't fit more courts. So what could we add to our club? And then the golf simulators, they were the perfect match. We think it's going to be something that is going to add to the services that we're providing our members.
Okay. And that will be available on an hourly rate. You can rent the kind of simulator and the clubs as well, or how's that going to work for you guys?
We are not decided 100%, but for right now, and it's going to work similar to the pickleball courts or the paddle courts, where you have to be a member and then you pay for the hourly, you rent for the hour, but you can still come and use it if you're not a member, just like the course, but with some limitations. How far in advance you can book, and then you're also gonna pay a little bit of a different fee for not being a member.
Okay, cool, makes sense. Cool. That as well, it gives me a lot of thoughts as well. That's why I like to talk to people like yourself, for example, because we're with the constructions that we have as well a couple options. We talked about golf simulator. There's a guy that came to us as well to see a golf simulator and how that works. And we are debating maybe a full gym to have the option to put a full-time gym, that you can charge members as well for the gym. So there's a couple of things that in my mind. So I appreciate that feedback or what you just said, actually.
On the golf simulator side, so besides the lessons, we're planning to run leagues and tournaments. And the fun thing about the golf simulators is that so the way it works is you have an app. So every time you go and play, you're going to, set up there's a computer there. So they recognize that it's you. It keeps track of all your data, and you can be playing on a golf course in Europe or a golf course in California against somebody else anywhere in the world. And it's a league that is happening over the course of the day, of a weekend, of, a full season. So it's kind of cool to run leagues that way. Then we are also envisioning that space to be used by, a group of, a foursome. You can go and, for 2 hours, you play golf, you have a beer and then you're hanging out that way. We're going to have a ton of events and like corporate events that some are going to do the golf and some are going to do paddle and some are going to do pickleball.
Okay.
So having the different options in the same space, and then you have to have the bar really close to the golf simulator too.
Yeah, of course. Okay. No, that's also a good input. Okay, very good. One more thing on I don't know, just want to quickly understand the finances behind pickleball. What's the rental for a pickleball court? What's an hour? If I wanted to go, what's the rental and what's the paddle?
So that, it's funny that you're asking, because the real estate of a paddle court, we know is 10 by 20 and in feet is 33 by 66. The pickleball court, if you count the area around the court, so you have the lines, and then the area around the court is 30 by 60, which is pretty close to the 33 by 66 or the 10 by 20.
Feet. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so 30 by 60 in feet or 10 by 20. So it's very close to a paddle court.
Okay.
The rental charge is double.
For pickleball?
On the paddle side.
On the paddle side,
the
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so we're gonna charge, and we have peak and non-peak.
Yeah.
So peak, it would be the most, from 9 to 12, I think, in the mornings, and then on weekends, and then evenings. So the middle of the day is the least expensive time.
Okay.
So the least expensive time pickleball court is $40. The most expensive time is $60 an hour. On the paddle side is 100 to 120. So there's a big difference. Yes, per hour.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, the other club in Brooklyn, they're charging more than double of what we charge for non-members. So we wanted to keep our.
I didn't know that. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, we wanted to keep our rates. I don't want to say inexpensive or fairly, affordable, depending, how much money you have.
Yeah,
but
of course.
We're pretty close to what you would pay on the paddle side, what you would pay on a tennis court.
Okay. Shit, I didn't know that. That's also nice because I mean, I my eyes opened up like that because I live in Switzerland. It's considered a relatively expensive country, yeah. And Zurich is also one of the most expensive cities in the world. I think New York, and then New York City, and then Zurich and Singapore maybe, or something like that. And on our prime time, we charge 64 francs, which is about $70 for an hour of the court. So which is a lot less than what you guys do, which is okay, interesting. No, it's cool. But if that's the market. If that's the market rate, that's the market rate. I mean, there's I know
in Paddle House in Brooklyn, Brooklyn is part of New York City. It's one of the 5 boroughs.
Yeah.
And they charge $220 and they have the courts full. So, you have to see where if you can have the courts full at that rate, then it's amazing. So in our area, if we charge that, no one will come to play. So we know our market based on our experience of our area. So we think that we're gonna be in that price range. We're gonna be okay.
And that's for the non-members, or that's for the members?
No, it's the same rate. The only difference is that the non-members have to pay $18 every time they come. So if you have 4 people,
extra 18 extra, or the guest fee or whatever. So you can have
3 members and 1 non-member, so they pay that guest fee. But then there are some limitations how many times they can come during the month and how many months they can book a court.
Okay, interesting. Wow, that's great. If he charged $200 for an hour for the courts, I think we'd be well off in terms of finances. But that's nice. Okay, that's cool. Very cool to understand. All right, cool. I have one more topic that I would like to cover with you, which is your brand, if I can. Skull You. Skull You, perfect. And I want to talk about that a little bit with you. It's something you started not too long ago, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about it. Tell me a little bit about what's happening there.
So one of the partners in the Sports Haus is my partner in a few other ventures. Juan Araya, he's top pickleball player. He's not playing tournaments anymore, but 2 years ago he was in the top 10.
Okay.
He's been as high as #1 in platform tennis, a sport that in Europe doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And that is similar in a way, if you look at it, to Padel.
With the fence around.
And it's a combination of Padel. Yeah, with the chicken wire, the fence around.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've played some tennis together. We grew up in Argentina together. So we've known each other for a long time. And Juan and I wanted to do something together in terms of equipment. So first we started with a platform tennis paddle, which is similar to a paddle racket. And it's a little bit more round. The paddle rackets have different shapes and they're thicker. These ones are thinner, but it looks somehow similar. Then we added pickleball, and then we added actually paddle as well. And the name is kind of funny. So Juan, because of the way we pronounce certain words or letters in English, when he says skull, it sounds like school. And if you say, I'm going to school you, it's sort of playing words, based on how he pronounces the word skull. Yeah. And schooling someone is like, like teaching someone in a funny way. In the US, it means I'm gonna school you, like I'm gonna teach you how it's done.
I'm gonna show you how it's done. I'm gonna beat you relatively easy. Yes.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. That's how the name started. Okay.
We started like that. We have our website. We sell direct to consumer, and then we also have about 100, maybe a little over 100 now, and these accounts all over the US that we ship them at wholesale, and then they sell retail to their own customers.
Okay. My question, it's again quite selfish, to be honest with you. I have my brand as well, Paddler. It's not just a podcast. It's a brand as well with some clothings and stuff like that. Rackets I haven't gone into yet. Not planning it, but maybe one day you'll never know. But I just have some clothing now, some hoodies and some caps and whatnot. What has been your biggest learning experience with starting a brand like this? It can be anything, can be with production, can be with selling, can be with distributors, anything that sticks out to you that you said, okay, I didn't think that it was going to be like that.
Yeah, there are so many moving parts. One is from the the structure of the business, you know, the finances, okay, we have to have a website, we have to, how are we going to manage the distribution of the products, you know, what is the pricing strategy, the marketing, the logo, how are we going to manage, like you said, the production of our, you know, of our products, you know, where do we get them from, how much inventory do we keep? So there are so many moving parts, and you know, we are a really small company and we're pretty much doing it all by ourselves. Now we're starting, our distribution is going to be outsourced, and we outsource our social media, we are outsource, you know, the financial part. So we're doing more of the thinking about the vision and how we want to take the brand than actually packing boxes and shipping them.
Sure. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, of course. Okay. Great. Yeah, I mean, I wish you good luck, obviously, with that, and good luck with, when is Sports Haus opening, by the way? When do you guys plan to open?
So we are literally about to start and breaking ground. I mean, the building is done. All of that is set. And in the next few days, I think early in May, the first week of May, we're planning to start and taking the old lights down and putting new lights and the new electrical and the new plumbing.
Okay.
And sometime in August, we hope to be up and running. And there's not that much that needs to be done other than, like I said, you know, installing new lights, we're putting new air conditioning and heating equipment. We're going to build the lockers. We're going to, you know, put the golf simulators, and then the courts, they don't take that long. So that's going to be the very last thing that we do. The pickleball courts are going to take between 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
There's almost no side work because the concrete is pretty level.
Okay.
And then the paddle courts take 2 to 3 days each.
Yeah.
And so sometime in August, as we get closer, then we'll know. So if you're around at that time, you're definitely invited. So you need to let us know, and then you can come and see it.
End of August, beginning of September, I should be around the New York area, because I go do 3 weeks. I go to Toronto, New York, then Florida, and then the West Coast. But I think beginning of September, I should be around. So hopefully you guys be open. I would love to come and visit, actually.
Absolutely.
That'd be awesome. All right.
Maybe you can even record one of your podcasts from the club.
Yeah, we can do it. We definitely do one then. Once you guys open, we'll do a little, if you guys open, we'll do a little video, and we'll do a podcast as well. Would be cool. Awesome. Patricio, that would be from my side, I think, for the podcast. So yeah, I'd appreciate, thank you for your time, and we'll stay in touch, and I'll definitely let you know when I'm coming exactly, and I wish you guys, until then, good luck with the buildings and with everything that's coming. And then hopefully we'll see each other in September, more or less.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for the invitation, and yeah, stay in touch, and then we'll play some paddle at our place.
Sounds good. My pleasure. See you soon, huh? Thank you.
See you. Thanks.
Ciao.